minutes left.
Almost 2 minutes. Okay, good. I will turn then to Mr. Party. You basically talked of defunding universities, university research. The business of universities, you said, is getting government money. They're chronic welfare recipients. This corrupts the university enterprise. You have to, whoever pays the piper or calls the tune, all the strings attached. I guess I'm left wondering where universities should go for this funding then, and how will that stop the corruption?
Well, I think we should start with the division of powers in the Canadian Constitution. Education, including higher education, is a provincial matter of jurisdiction. I don't understand why the federal government is involved in this.
So you think that, sorry to interrupt, but do you think that provincial governments would have less strings? And, you know, I can see there may be different strings if I was applying for funding in Alberta versus British Columbia, for instance. I'm from British Columbia. And, you know, they might be different strings, but I can't see how that process of, you know, what you label corruption, and I almost get the impression you're saying it's corruption because you don't agree with the present government here. I'm not necessarily a fan of theirs either, but I don't, you know.
No, okay, just to be clear though, when I say corruption, I don't like, okay, let's be very clear. When I say corruption, I don't mean brown envelopes of cash under the door.
And I know you don't. I know you
right?
don't.
I'm talking about the corruption of the intellectual enterprise, as in the influence that the promise of funding has on the questions that are pursued and how they are pursued.
So in other things, you're saying universities should be funded strictly by the provinces?
Well, sure. Yes, I do. And in the same way that I think that healthcare should be funded by the provinces, because healthcare is a provincial responsibility.
Well, so and I just don't, I don't know, I just don't see the intellectual behind all these other things that you complain about the federal government. I don't see that changing under provincial government. That's all. I'm just.
Well, why don't you? But I think the solution there is to allow the provinces to work it out for themselves. Now, I might have the same criticism of a provincial government's approach if they chose something similar. But the point is, it's a provincial responsibility. Why don't you let them work it out? And if they were to put together a program that resembled what we're talking about, then I would have criticisms for them as well. But they're at least within their jurisdiction now.
How much?
A minute.
A minute. Oh my goodness, time flies. Actually, it doesn't fly when you're having fun. But so I'll continue on this then. Yeah, sure. And you commented on how, you know, there's 40% taken off the top. That doesn't come off.
Yeah, I want to be very clear. So
if I can just, sorry, that was just the start of my question.
Fine, yeah.
You know, and it seemed like, you know, the universities were, you know, eagerly trying to claw money wherever they could find it. The fact is the government funding of universities has steadily declined over the last 30, 40 years. And so universities are desperate for cash. They're looking for cash wherever they can find it. They've upped tuition fees. They brought in lots of foreign students so they can get higher tuition fees. They're taking bigger and bigger chunks off of research grants from the researchers, not from the students.
Yeah, right.
So again, to fix that, the only way I can see that being fixed is if the provincial governments, in your view, should be funding universities at a much, much higher rate than they are now. And
well, there are lots of possibilities, and I'm not concluding this, but you're assuming that all the universities that exist and should expand, because they've expanded during a period, and now they find, well, maybe they're too big now because the international students are not there. So, but on the 40%,
I'm sorry, that is the time. So we're going to turn